Broadcasting live on the UnitedWest.org AM radio network, simulcasting on DirecTV, iHeartRadio, Roku, and the World Wide Web. This is Enemies of the State with Tom Trento.
All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It is Wednesday, July 15th. It is about 6 minutes after 4 o'clock East Coast time, about 6 after 1 o'clock Pacific, and about 6 after 6 p.m. in Melbourne, Australia. Welcome to Enemies of the State. I am not Tom Trento. My name is Damon Rosen. I am filling in for Tom while he is away on special assignment, and we have got a fantastic show for you today. We have the very unique, incomparable Dr. Andrew Bostom. Not only is Dr. Andrew Bostom an epidemiologist,
he's a real doctor.
He's a real doctor. He is also the world's foremost authority on Islamic anti-Semitism. So he's going to be joining us very shortly. Like I said, it is Wednesday the 15th. Yesterday, unfortunately, is a day that will live in infamy. It is our Chamberlain moment. The P5+1 deal with Iran in regard to their nuclear program is an absolute disaster. This is something that Tom and many people have been saying was going to be a disaster. It actually ended up getting worse. Yeah. Worse than everyone thought it was going to be. We'll touch on a few of those articles. Mark, can you come to my screen when you get a chance?
Yeah, just a minute. I got it.
Okay. Iranians are euphoric after nuclear deal reached.
Yeah, they're euphoric because now all the sanctions are lifted. Everything is gone. They get to go. They get everything they want. They've gotten everything they want. Plus, and the leadership is happy because they get the bomb.
Right. And we touched on this yesterday when the Iranians are overjoyed, when Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, the foremost Islamic terrorist group in the world, is happy about a deal getting done, when Russia and China are happy about the deal getting done, it makes you wonder, maybe it wasn't such a good deal for the rest of us. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, when you have the leftist, the extreme leftist reporters, all right, going, do you think it's odd that all our people who hate us are
even
really
on CNN last night. But to go over how bad this deal is and how it's not even enforceable, let's bring in the man himself, Dr. Andrew Bostom.
How you doing, Andy?
Hi, guys. Good to be with you. It's these are somber times, I must say. You keep holding out hope against hope that maybe the whole negotiations process would have collapsed of its own ugliness, and it just didn't. So even I, who have been concerned that this is the ultimate trajectory, was holding out, the last grasping on a few straws at the end there, that maybe it would just collapse.
It looked that way when Obama threatened.
And it's shocking.
Yeah, when Obama threatened to walk away, what is that, about a week and a half ago, you thought maybe the domestic pressure.
Posturing. Obviously, that was just posturing.
Right.
But it's still, I must say, it was still sort of a punch in the gut to actually have it finalized. And now I know, there are some options left in the Senate and in the Congress, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that. But basically, the capitulation to President Obama took place a while ago, and the fate was pretty much sealed by not contesting this series of negotiations and insisting that it go through the usual Senate and Vice and consent process. And that was given away via the Corker-Cardin compromise, which only allows the Senate and that's the process they're beginning now. They have 60 days to review the agreement, and potentially, if they can withstand that Obama veto, and he made clear yesterday that he would veto anything that he perceives as threatening this agreement, and that would include obviously this Corker-Cardin bill. If they actually got enough Democrats to go along with them, they could potentially reinstate sanctions, but they have no ability to deal with the agreement itself. And I really cut to the chase with this agreement. Unlike the previous times, you actually have a 159-page document to look at this time, and it's called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And one of the only things that I respect the negotiators for doing is at least putting this document out there right away. And I was searching keywords. I wanted to, my basic concern with a taqiyya mongering jihadist regime like this is verification, access, etc. So I searched various key terms, and the best term turned out to be access. And lo and behold, item 78 on page 43 of this agreement, and I have a link to it on my blog.
Yes.
Makes very clear, Damon and Mark, that the heart of this has been ripped out, i.e., inspections. There are no viable inspections that you would have to impose in draconian fashion on a regime like the Iranian regime. There's a mechanism where the Iranians have 14 days to address the IAEA's original request for access, but wait, like the late Billy Mays. But wait, then there's another 7 days plus 3 days of this panel of 8 members, including Iran, overseeing this whole discussion, after all, of whether they're going to be granted access. So it's a total of 24 days of inactivity, essentially.
Okay, hold it right there. So what you're saying, for if people did not catch what Andy just said, if there is suspected cheating going on, if there's an installation that the IAEA wants to go into, it would take minimum of 14 days, possibly up to 24 days to get into that nuclear facility to see what's going on. Is that what you just said?
Yes, and here's the kind of activity specifically, Damon, I'm reading now from the text that this article addresses. Again, it's item 78 on page 43 of this document, and I urge people to just sit there and go through it, because there are other things too. But it says, if the absence of undeclared nuclear materials and activities, or activities inconsistent with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, cannot be verified after the implementation of the alternative arrangements by Iran and the IAEA, or if the two sides are unable to reach satisfactory arrangements to verify the absence of undeclared nuclear material and activities, blah, 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 then this lengthy process is set into motion, which essentially gives Iran 24 days to do whatever, to move things around, to clean things up, whatever.
So you're saying this toothless agreement, if the IAEA wanted to get in, there's a 14-day absolute bare minimum to get in. So they can take nuclear material from one installation to another. Minimum 14 days, possibly more.
David, to be fair, I guess you could say that, if some rogue, anti-regime, a person happened to let the IAEA in sooner. But
they would get their heads chopped off.
Right. Yeah. Well, but the actual process, the way it's supposed to take place, it can create a delay of 24 days right off the bat.
Let me see if I got this straight. Okay, let me see if I got this straight. Let's change the parties around a little bit here. Let's say you have the DEA on one side, and you have a Mexican drug cartel, and they have a house. Perfect
analogy.
Okay, so what the agreement says is they have to notify the Mexican drug cartel that they're going to search this house for massive amounts of drugs. correct?
And they have 24 days to relocate their laboratory, to fill off their insurance, to bury the bodies.
Time to take the meth house down.
I guess we got to move the meth house. Okay, and then
But I'm saying,
but hold on.
I don't, look, we have to maintain our
hold on.
sense of humor. We have to maintain our sense of humor.
Yes.
But it is a very somber thing because this is the last straw. In other words, this is between the West, Israel, and the abyss, and the possibility of a nuclearized Iran was some rational, strict form of inspections. This guts them altogether. They don't exist.
They don't exist. And my other point on that was, and the Mexican drug cartel has to be told, has a right to vote on this, do they not?
Yes,
and they say
oversight board. Yes, we're on one hand we're the drug cartel, but we're also part of the oversight board dealing with the drug cartel. Yes. We have members in both camps.
Well, hold on. That sounds like Mexico.
Yeah, exactly. It does. I mean, but it's no, but the serious and existentially serious part of this is that all of us were very skeptical. Those of us of our opinions, of our persuasion, were of course extremely skeptical about this. But this whole process, this absurd process. But now it's not just absurd. It's toothless and it's dangerous.
Oh, very dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. I mean, how can you let someone who's the criminal be part of the investigation or any part of the process whatsoever? It's completely ridiculous.
Well, Mark and Damon, you combine that with the other open concessions that you can read about in the agreement, the maintenance, the allowance of over 5,000 centrifuges, the fact that the centrifuges, if you're it's ratcheted down from the number of about 20,000. But let those roughly 15,000 other centrifuges haven't been destroyed; they've just been taken offline. Temporarily.
So it's like unplugging it. So if you want to plug it back in, you just go plug it back in.
Exactly. It's like well, I generally leave my Cuisinart unplugged. I'm not like making guacamole 24 hours a day.
I don't have the meth lab
Andy,
running all the time.
Do you unplug your Keurig machine at night?
Yeah.
My other point.
I don't need an inexhaustible supply of carrot juice.
Well, my other point is there's two generations of centrifuges that they have. They have the generation 1, and then they have the gas centrifuges, which is the more advanced. One's at Ferdo power plant, the other one's at Natanz. Natanz is one that has the gas centrifuges. Now, understanding it only takes 16 kilograms of 90% pure uranium-238 to be highly refined to make about 16 kilograms, not that much, and it takes about 1,000 to 2,000 centrifuges operating, depending on which model over the time period. The version 2 does it quicker, but they could right now have enough raw material. Enough nuclear material, actual nuclear material to make a bomb right now. Is that not correct?
Well, without getting too far into the weeds about this, let me just recount what after months to years of denial, the Obama administration conceded. The Obama administration conceded that the breakout time had been down to 3 months. That's what they were conceding.
Even as they were lying about that for years and saying, it was at least a year. Documents came out a few months ago confirming that it was at the most 3 months.
Exactly. And the other thing that they conceded was the Fred Flight's, conservative Center for Security Policy, but confirmed by Ali Heinonen, Kennedy School, not conservative, center left at least, estimate that when we're talking about the amount of at least low-level enriched uranium that Iran already possessed, it was enough to make 10 or 11 bombs. Kerry finally conceded that.
Obama said it yesterday.
Again, right. So
how is it that they didn't have enough for a bomb,
right?
But yesterday they had enough for 10? I'm pretty curious about that, Andy.
Well, Damon, this has been the canard about breakout time in general, and it's not just the Obama administration. There's been some confusion about this too. The Obama administration obviously knew, but other analysts, who were not of their persuasion, were confused that breakout time didn't translate to one weapon. It translated to these 10 or 11 weapons, given the amount of low enriched uranium that was there. Now, in going through some subsequent reports, the most recent one I could find was from the end of June by Ali Heinonen. He was suggesting that there's so much uncertainty about the rate at which these different classes of centrifuges can actually produce enriched uranium. In other words, our estimates, it's really funny about this, our estimates are always lowball estimates. The Iranian estimates, Ali Heinonen thinks, may actually be more honest. Now, you could say they're bragging. They want to say they have more efficient centrifuges. But he sort of splits the difference and says that, there's no way that with the 5,000 centrifuges we now know are operable, that this quote-unquote breakout time it has been reduced to a year. He thinks it's more like 6 months, and that's with the known processes they have.
Yeah,
with unknown processes, with cheating, with lack of inspections, we could be back to very short order, 3 weeks.
North Korea, hello, North Korea.
Exactly. And the fact is that all the basics that were originally thought about when this, when iterations of this process began, 10 years ago, all those what had been previous red lines, have long been crossed, and so we've enshrined their enrichment program. We've said nothing about their ballistic missile program, which
we're going to allow conventional weapons. I mean, according to this agreement, they have no limitations.
Lifting embargoes on conventional weapons now, taking off, murderous thugs like Soleimani, IRGC people off the embargo list. These are people with American blood on their hands, let alone the blood of listeners. It's just almost a breathtakingly appalling process.
It's way worse. I mean, there's articles all over. Fred Fleitz, who you just mentioned before, Center for Security Policy, his article, Iran nuclear deal much worse than experts predicted.
Fred,
and there's numerous articles with some iteration or another of how much worse this deal is, how much better it is for Iran than anything. I mean, when CNN is saying, gee, I wonder why our foes like this deal, there might be a problem.
Damon, you opened up, and this is where I tend to sometimes run afoul of the conservatives. You opened up with a very important observation, neutral observation. You were just reporting the fact that the Iranians, not the mullahs, not the Hezbollah, as they're sometimes identified, the kids that look like Hezbollah, not the Shadori, the women that look like Hezbollah. Iranians are euphoric.
Are euphoric.
Are euphoric.
This is a very, very popular sentiment in Iran. Exactly. At the height of the sanctions. I pointed this out.
And these are the same people. These are the same people who gather on Friday and scream "Death to America, Death to Israel."
Well, it's not 100% overlap. But what I'm saying is that at the height of the sanctions, when allegedly Iran was, its economy was being somewhat constricted, 63% of Iranians wanted them to pursue their nuclear program. Right. About 6 months later, it was revealed that that was a Gallup poll about the sentiments for the nuclear program. About 6 months later, it was revealed from Pew data. So again, these are not fly-by-night polling agencies. These are some of the world's best.
And the reason
just let me finish, Mark. Okay. Pew data showed that 83% of Iranians still want the Sharia. After at that point,
I'm surprised it's that low.
And 72%, Damon. This was a very tricky, clever question that Pew asked, because they want to get validation of that shocking to some people number of 83%. They asked another question which said, do you think that religious fanaticism is a problem in Iran? 72% of the people said no.
Of course not.
So in other words, amputations for theft, stoning for adultery, gouging out eyes with the Lex Talionis,
hanging homosexuals from cranes in downtown.
This is not this. Almost 3/4 of the population does not think that this comprises religious fanaticism. So, again, getting back to your observation, that the ordinary citizens are euphoric, it shows you the depth of the problem and why regime change and singing the praises of the Green movement was never going to do anything about this.
And
the solution, unfortunately, it has nothing to do with invasions, but the solution is military destruction of their nuclear infrastructure. Now, I do want to give you one faint glimmer of hope.
Please do.
Well, and easily extinguished, of course, and certainly not really anything to count on. Certainly for this administration's tenure, unless something really catastrophic happens to us. But all along now, we have been testing the massive ordnance penetrator, including within about 3 new tests within the last 6 months, apparently.
Out in Arizona, I heard there was some testing going on,
and that's taking place in the desert in New Mexico. And according to open source counts I could read, the tests have gone really well. I mean, these things work. We can drop them with our.
What are they going to drop them on Israel's nukes?
Yeah, well,
our nuclear facilities? Because this administration's certainly not going to use them on the Iranians. If anything, it would be used against Israel before Iran with this lunatic.
We don't. As a matter of fact, it's the Iranians who are the masters at embedding these things. But at any rate, though, it struck me as at least a faint glimmer of hope that there are adults in the Defense Department that understand that this has to be on the table as a contingency, and it's being actively pursued, and more are being manufactured. And also, I think it's Boeing produces them. But they're being manufactured, they're being tested. Even with this newest generation, and we can do this. We have the capability. Fordo, for example, is too deep. You'd have to drop one, create a crater,
and then come back in and whack it again,
and then drop another one inside that crater. But I do say, it's so bleak, but that was the only thing that gave me a little glimmer of hope.
Well,
go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Also, they successfully tested the David Sling over just a couple months ago, back in March, which is. It's like a souped-up Iron Dome is what it is, because the Iron Dome gets these short-range rockets, but the David Sling will get those intermediate ballistic missiles that come across, and that's highly encouraging, and that's made by Raytheon here in U.S. and another company over in Israel. So that's very positive news. But that's a defensive weapon. Obviously, it's not going to if they shoot over 30,000 rockets into your everything's.
Well, and Mark, that raises another point. It's not just Iran's immediate use of a nuclear weapon, a nuclear device, or even giving it to one of their proxies to use. It's the fact that with the establishment of Iran as a nuclear power. Their proxies can operate now with more impunity,
absolutely,
and launch conventional rocket attacks with less fear of retaliation, because Iran would have its own.
Because they know their big brother, Hezbollah, little brother, or Hamas now, because Hamas is going to get a lot of extra funding out of this $100 billion.
And the money is another huge issue.
Okay,
so I want to bring reaping a bonanza from this in terms of released assets, but let's not forget. Beyond just the assets that were frozen and released, is that Iran, while this process was going on, and I don't know if it was just braggadocio. Rouhani gave a speech, when it was apparently more tenuous about the agreement. This was several months ago. They apparently opened up a vast new oil and gas field in the south, and he basically said, look. The era of threatening us with sanctions is over. We have this rich resource. We're going to develop it, and we're going to sell it, and people are going to want to buy it. So, put your sanctions on us or not, we don't really care.
Right.
And let me do a quick. You could just say he's bragging.
Quick question, Damon.
Now, let me do station ID real quick, and then we'll pick back up with Andy, because I didn't even do it earlier. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. You're listening to 740 WSBR Radio in sunny South Florida. If it's midnight, You're listening to Red State Talk Radio. Go to redstatetalkradio.com. Check out all the programming. Really good stuff for you conservatives out there. I think you'll really like it. Go to our website if you want to watch the show, theunitedwest.org. Check it out. If you want to see any and all of our programming, which is impossible, but if you want to check out prior shows, some shorter videos, go to youtube.com/theunitedwest.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'd like to bring up one thing, and this thing we were talking about earlier, a part of what this agreement does not talk about is, and nobody's actually brought this point up, these IR-8 centrifuges, which produce 16 times better than the current centrifuges. Iran has said they have them. They've actually acquired the technology and have built the IR-8, which, like I said, produces 16 times more efficient than their original ones. So we always talk about number of centrifuges, but when you start to get down, if you have one that produces 16 times more than the original one. Now all you need is 100 centrifuges versus 1,000. Nobody talks about that.
Mark, the agreement is actually pretty explicit that they are going to be allowed centrifuge research and development. And you're absolutely right. There's a whole class of centrifuges, I think 4, 5, 6, I think they skip 7 and 8.
Yeah.
And there's an IR2M. All these things were under development, and I think it's Salehi, their atomic energy commissioner, and he was part of the negotiations too. He was the one who I felt was actually giving better estimates of how efficient these centrifuges are in Iranian hands. And you're absolutely right. If they're going to be allowed, let's say the limit is kept at it's just below 5,000.
Yeah.
And I'm not totally clear on this, but they might be allowed to replace some of these newer centrifuges if they're allowed R&D. Even if you kept the same number,
you're multiplying them by 16 or whatever.
So if you have so if you have 5,000 as your limit, and you multiply it by 16, that was at 70,000 equivalent
80,000.
to 80,000 centrifuges. It's ridiculous.
And the other thing is, okay, let's go back to our 24-day rule. Okay, you've got 5,000, and let's see, it's legit. It's all IR1s, and then you decide, well, you know what? We're going to take 24 days and throw in our centrifuges that go 16 times as fast.
I know,
and crank it up, and then start and move the enriched uranium to God knows where. And the 24 days have elapsed. It's like, what do you mean?
What?
It's like like Marty Feldman. Whoa.
Hey, I want to switch this up a little bit now. Andy, you wrote a book. You've written many books, actually. For those of you listening, we're speaking with Dr. Andrew Bostom. He is one of the world's foremost authorities on Islamic anti-Semitism, on top of being an epidemiologist. Your latest book, I think it was your most recent book, Iran's Final Solution for Israel.
Yeah, right.
The Legacy of Jihad and Shiite Islamic Jew Hatred in Iran. Now, I know there's no way we're going to go over this whole book, but can we take at least 5 minutes right now? And I want you to equate what the agreement from yesterday and your book, what it means. Okay, so I want you to take Iran's let's agree that Iran can go nuclear from this deal yesterday. That's what everyone is saying, other than the president, who's a lying liar. Okay, outside of the president of the United States, everyone rational realizes this deal is going to allow Iran to go nuclear. Put that in context of Iran's Final Solution for Israel, your most recent book.
Well, I'll segue into that by just reminding people of what took place last week with the Al-Quds Day celebrations. Again, this is the Jerusalem Day celebrations, where essentially what they're calling for is the jihad conquest of Jerusalem, which obviously wouldn't take place without a lot of slaughter and rapine taking place.
We covered Al-Quds Day for a while yesterday.
Pardon?
We covered Al-Quds Day for a little while yesterday.
Well, but if you looked at what was taking place in Iran, again, it gets back to your opening observation about Iranians are euphoric. 700 cities were involved in these celebrations. And this gets at what I would say are the three ugly pillars of this regime, and sadly, more broadly, this society. When Netanyahu gave his speech, gosh, back now in March, he pointed out in I thought, a very clear way what I get at in the book, and he did it his way, and I thought it was very useful. He pointed out that jihadism is literally rooted in the Iranian constitution.
Right.
And if you look at the constitution, they cite a Quranic verse, 860, so the eighth surah, the 60th verse, which talks about striking terror in the heart of the infidel. And they use that in the context of Iran being what they see as the leader of the global Muslim jihad movement. And the goal of that is literally to Islamize regionally and then, more broadly, and to spread the Sharia. So that's right in their constitution. The other thing that he referred to is Ayatollah Khamenei, the spiritual leader, now who succeeded Khomeini. His Twitter account, where he tweeted out, this was in 2014, that the nine reasons to annihilate.
Yes.
So this annihilationist, anti-Semitism, right on his Twitter account. And of course, he's invoked over the years all the basic Quranic Hadith themes of Islamic Jew hatred to rationalize these attitudes. But a year before that, so going back now to 2013 in the fall, he also tweeted out, Ayatollah Khamenei, that Israel was the unclean rabid dog of the region. And that gets at this uniquely Shiite doctrine of najis, of the physical and spiritual uncleanliness of the infidel, particularly Jews, and it has a long history in Iran of at least a half millennium. And this is used, as you might imagine, as a form of dehumanization. And so you dehumanize and then you annihilate. And the history that I relate in the book is the application of these najis regulations, which weren't just humiliating, they triggered pogroms. So one infamous regulation, for example, guys, was that Jews who were badged, 500 years before the Nazis, had to wear color-coded badges, cloth badges. And for the Jews, it was yellow. For the Zoroastrians, I believe it was red. For the Christians, it was blue. But they had to be badged so that Muslims could see them.
Like the Star of David. Like the Star of David in World War II, right?
Way before World War II.
Right.
And the one particularly onerous regulation was that Jews were not allowed to go out in the rain or sleet or snow because water is a vehicle to convey their impurity.
Stop. You just said that Jews were not allowed to go out in the rain and the snow,
right?
Because the Iranian Shia Muslims
right.
thought that they would get diseased from the dirt coming off of Jews that were walking or having rain drip off them. Did you just say that?
It's not quite. I mean, it's not quite the disease model. It's the impurity. They would be debased. They would be made impure. They wouldn't necessarily, get the plague or pneumonia or but they would be physically debased by being in contact with bodily fluids. Let's face it.
I can understand. I can actually understand
there's
that.
even an expression. It applied more broadly than just the Jews, but the Jews were particularly despised and considered filthy. The expression for Armenians, again, applying this rule of not going out in the rain, was a dry dog, because the Armenians are dogs. A dry dog is better than a wet dog. So you see and Zoroastrians, what did they used to do to torment the Zoroastrians? As the Zoroastrians evolved, they were very dependent on their dogs and had a loving relationship with dogs.
Oh, that's where the dog hatred came from.
And so when they would collect the jizya payments from the Zoroastrians, if they weren't forthcoming rapidly or in full, whatever, they would tie the Zoroastrian's dog, and a dog is a filthy animal, certainly according to the Shia, and they would tie the Zoroastrian to his dog and beat the crap out of both of them.
Jesus.
So what I'm saying is that, and let's just to give you a historical encapsulation, this is the nature of Iran for the better part of the period between 1501 and the founding of the Shiite theocracy through 1925 and the real revolution, which is this, now blip on the radar screen, secular-leaning Pahlavi period, very autocratic, but trying to modernize and westernize. And then you go back to it with the retrograde Khomeini revolution, which restores, the Najis regulations. And by the way, Damon, the grand poobah of the Green movement, the spiritual godfather of the Green movement, Ayatollah Montazeri, was perhaps the most profound revivalist of Najis regulations, wrote copiously about it. And in the book, I have an example of a Jew trying to shake his hand, and he won't touch him.
I saw that picture.
Yes, yes.
You sent it to me earlier this year.
Well, so he died in 2009, but Montazeri was supposed to be the anti-Khomeini,
right, the savior that was supposed to replace the brutal 36-year regime, is actually fundamentally as or more anti-Semitic than the freaks mullahs in power now.
And more of a revivalist of this ugly Najis doctrine. I mean, it was Montazeri who said that it's also a political goal because you want to instill in the Shia hatred of the non-Muslims. That's part of the whole idea of Najis. This is explicit in his writing. And then the political leader of the Green movement, who they were making a big fuss about in 2009, Mayor Hussein Mousavi, and he was, I think he's still under house arrest. He repeated the metaphor of removing Israel as a cancer. He was a very important ideologue of the Khomeini school himself. May have actually gotten their nuclear program started by making an arrangement with the AQ Khan network. Even when he campaigned in 2009, he was still very pro-nuclear program, as was Ayatollah Montazeri. So what I make clear in the book is that there's a tremendous continuum, and that this has been discounted, obviously, by the Obama administration, but by most of the right as well. They don't seem to grasp this. They don't have an understanding that what we're seeing in Iran since 1979 is not an anomaly. It's really a continuum. And in fact, when you read the ideology of Khomeini, of Montazeri, of the whole group, they lionize the original Iranian theocracy, which was the Safavids and Shah Ismail. These are people that they lionize.
Yeah, last week you wrote an article, and on your blog you have Rafsanjani, Iran's alleged long-standing moderate voice. Alien Israel will be wiped off the map. You wrote this a week ago, yesterday.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, David, Rafsanjani periodically has been held up as, a moderate, just the way, Rouhani is now. And by the way, they're very tight. They've known, they're
looks like they buy their clothes at the same place too.
Yeah, exactly. Same turban shop.
Yeah.
But seriously, so we're told that when Ahmadinejad says Israel should be wiped off the map, oh no, well, he's a hardliner. And then Rafsanjani says the same thing. Moreover, as I pointed out in that piece last week, Damon, this was very interesting to me, is that this wonderful, decent, courageous Argentinian prosecutor Nisman, who was assassinated, and who led the investigation, which pinned the blame for the terrible Buenos Aires bombings in the early 1990s, which killed about 114 people.
Jewish people. So the Iranians were directly responsible. For those that don't know this, Andy, a lot of people just aren't aware of this. The Iranians bombed out 2 Jewish centers. Was one a school?
Oh, well, one was a consulate and one was a Jewish community center.
Okay.
So an embassy and a Jewish community.
Back in the early 90s. Very clear who did it. The Argentinians.
As a result of Nisman's investigation. I mean, he's the one.
Right, he nailed it. And the guy shows up the day of him supposed to appear in court to talk about his thorough investigation. indicting the Iranians just happens to show up with a bullet in his brain in his bathtub.
Yeah.
Well, he had released. I mean, he had the goods on them that was released in 2006, and that's the report that I'm reading through. And he was very explicit in his condemnation of Rafsanjani because, after all, this took place during the period where Rafsanjani was the Iranian president. But he also cites a sermon that Rafsanjani gave, again, the moderate, where he very calmly and matter-of-factly says that, look, and I'm paraphrasing, in a nuclear exchange with Israel, Iran is a much bigger country.
Right.
It would suffer, but it would survive, whereas Israel would be wiped out. And invoking the principle of jihad martyrdom, he felt that was worth it for the global Muslim ummah.
Say that again. Say that again.
In other words, he was basically reiterating the idea of jihad martyrdom. This is the moderate Rafsanjani, in a sermon he gave, where he and I'll read it. He says on a very special. Well, let me read you the whole thing. It's great. The Jews that migrate to Israel should expect the exodus in reverse to occur. Again, this is a sermon that the moderate Rafsanjani.
Very important, people. This is who we're giving a nuclear bomb to.
Right, and this is the moderate president, not Ahmadinejad. You know, the Jews that migrate to Israel should expect the exodus in reverse to occur, since one day the tumor will be cut out of the body of the Islamic world. So he's using another one of their favorite metaphors. And then millions of Jews that have migrated to Israel will once again be stateless. And when will this happen? On a very special day, a day when, without fail, the Islamic world will be equipped with the weapons that Israel now has at its disposal. So
referencing nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons, exactly. The imperialist strategy will be stopped dead in its tracks because the use of just one atomic bomb inside Israel will wipe it from the face of the earth. But such a bomb would do harm to the Islamic world only. It is not, in other words, he's saying they'll survive. It is not irrational to consider this possibility.
Wow.
So that is the one point. That's what needs to be taken very seriously right there, folks. Mutually assured destruction worked with the Russians. They might have been cruel, heartless, whatever you want to call them, but mutually assured destruction worked because they didn't want to see 90% of their people get wiped off. The Iranians will take 100% loss on the Israeli side and accept a 90% loss on their own side and call that a win.
Yep.
That's why we can't give them the bomb. But we just did it yesterday.
Now,
Mark, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one point that a lot of people overlook, and I showed this to my wife last night. She goes, "Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me?" On the screen here, what you have is Moradabad International Airport. Now it's actually the Ayatollah's own personal airport. Now it's a full-length international airport. I'm going to zoom in here on this airport.
Andy, do you have one of those?
Now I'm going to zoom in here.
Yeah, I have one in my backyard.
I'm going to zoom in on the airport here, okay? Now if you look where I was just at, is you're going to see here a 747 right there. That's this one right here in the middle. That is this is from Google Maps current. This is the Ayatollah's private multi-million-dollar jet right next to another one sitting right to the other side, and his security, which has 707s. Now off to the right, there is his palace. That is the palace of the Ayatollah, one of 17 palaces. This guy is a multi-billionaire. This thing that he walks around and pretends like he's poor. All these other planes up there and above, those are all his too. Look over here. You have on top. You have C-130s. These C-130s right here carry his private horses from point to point, so he has something to ride. So he doesn't get,
Are his camels on that as well, or is that just the horse?
He has a $250,000 pipe laden with gold and jewels. He has this guy is the most opulent leader in the Iranian world, worse than the Saudis. This guy has more cash and more wealth than the Saudis do. And this guy is trying to come across like he's poor pious while his country, just falls apart.
Well, it's as Mel Brooks might have put it, it's good to be the Ayatollah.
Yeah, no, it is.
Andy, before we let you go, we're coming up towards the end here, and I know you have some actual real doctor stuff you're working on, so I want to thank you for coming in. In a nutshell, 2 sentences, Iran getting the bomb and your book. Is Iran going to try and eliminate Israel from the map?
Oh, I think they will. Whether they will directly, launch a ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead, or whether they will give a nuclear device to one of their proxies, or whether they will have their proxies go all out with conventional attacks, missiles, and even ground troops. Iran is digging in the Syrian side of the Golan. If Syria doesn't fall completely to ISIS, or even then maybe they'll hire out ISIS at that point. Who knows? But yeah, one of those scenarios, they're serious. They want to destroy Israel, and like I said, the nuclear weapon directly launched at Israel is but one option, and the nuclear umbrella effect is not something to be dismissed, nor is it to be dismissed in terms of their aspirations for dominating, the Gulf.
Oh, what about the 4 hostages?
And getting their Shiite populations to
right. I mean, that's what they've been doing in Yemen without technically having the bomb.
Exactly.
I got a question too. Is they had these 4 hostages there?
Not dealt with.
Listen, they're getting released $100 billion.
Yep.
And all conventional weapons and everything else. Don't you think Kerry could have at least said, hey, you know what? Throw in those hostages too.
Hey, I got an idea.
At least
Let's
get
see
something.
If they'll take Bo Bergdahl.
It's again, it's like you want to maintain your sense of humor, but it's
getting harder.
It's not funny. I mean, just how awful.
I mean, how inhumane do you have to be?
I felt like I got punched in the stomach last night.
Exactly.
At the end of the day yesterday, after looking back and hearing more and more details of the deal come in, I really felt like someone punched me. I talked to a couple people last night, and it seems to be a common feeling that we all feel like we got the wind sucked out of us.
Well, it feels like Chamberlain.
And we're the people that should have been the most prepared for this, and it's still a shock.
I know.
And it really reminds me. I'm telling you, we've talked about the Chamberlain Hitler deal. And when Chamberlain came back with this piece of paper in his hand and said, "This is the greatest deal on earth. Hitler is not going to pursue any more weapons. He's peace." And this feels so like that moment, does it not, Andy?
Well, but
you're older than I thought, Mark.
In a sense, it's almost worse because, at least to Chamberlain's credit, he did oversee the rearming of Britain. He did regret what he had done. Even Churchill, acknowledged this. Obama seems totally carefree, euphoric about this. Genuinely euphoric, no regrets. It's the right thing to do. He's further weakening us rather than, again, at least Chamberlain participated in the rearmament of Great Britain.
Well, I do have to say, Obama is the greatest president we've ever had at making bad deals. He really is. I mean, I cannot recall another U.S. president make such horrific bad deals as this man.
Well, but I don't want to decontextualize this too much because there was a long period of time that was squandered during the Bush administration.
I agree.
But we 2 of these sites that we know about, the ARAK, A-R-A-K, the
heavy
plutonium reactor, and Natanz, the partially submerged uranium enrichment facility. Those were revealed by dissident groups in Iran in August of 2002. That means, including all the troops that we had in Iraq, that was 6 years of the Bush administration, nothing was done. Moreover, give him credit, he wasn't a very good prime minister, but he did. Ehud Olmert is the one that took out the Syrian reactor in 2007. Right. He wanted to go after Iran then, and it was Bush 2 persuaded by Secretary of Defense Gates, who crows about this in his memoir, that was dissuaded from even allowing the Israelis flyover rights when we controlled Iraqi airspace. If those things, if something had been done, if we had done it, or if we at least allowed the Israelis, we may never have gotten to this point.
That brings up another point that we did not even get to, that we don't have time to get to, which would be, what would happen if Israel tried to go attack them now via the air? Would there be a confrontation with U.S. Over Iraq? I mean, I can't see. And there were articles written last year on this.
Israel may forge alliances with others in the region that fear Iran. That at least, as much as
Saudi Arabia makes the most sense. I mean,
yeah. Well, as much as they hate Israel, as much as they too would like to see Israel destroyed for their own preservation, they may do things like assist with flyover rights or something like that could facilitate this. But all bets are off. And I must say, my concern about Netanyahu is that he's obviously an exceptionally bright man. He's a wonderful. He's wonderful with rhetoric. I don't know if he has the strength to do this. I know.
One thing I would like to bring up is, no matter what the Congress decides, no matter what anything happens after this point, after he has agreed to the Iranian deal, the United Nations takes it off the table. All Europe is now off the hook for having sanctions.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what happens from now on, we're at it alone.
Snapback. The quote snapback
we have
that Obama mentioned is garbage.
It's been this way. Sanctions, no sanctions. European cooperation, no cooperation. The burden has been on the United States and or Israel to destroy nuclear infrastructure. And as Matt Kroenig has pointed out on your show, the history of that in terms of its beneficial effects has been quite consistent, that once a nuclear program is destroyed, physically destroyed, it tends not to reconstitute itself.
Right.
So the track record...
Funny how that happens.
Yeah, I was talking more is like if we tried to go back and do anything at this point internationally with international cooperation, it's gone.
You mean sanctions?
Sanctions or even stopping.
Right, Mark, sanctions are no longer. Sanctions are over.
Also, now Russia's going to sell them conventional weapons, whether we like it or not. It's no matter what we do.
And cooperate with them in hardening their nuclear facilities.
Right.
That's the other thing that's coming out now. So, we've heard in the past about viral attacks by Israel, maybe the United States. No, part of this agreement is going to be to upgrade the technology so that these nuclear facilities can withstand such attacks, such viral attacks.
Andy, thank you very much for coming on with us today. You were fantastic as always. If anyone wants to read your stuff, they go to andrewbostom.org. Is that correct?
Yeah, andrewbostom.org, www.andrewbostom.org/blog. That'll take you right to the active blog.
Well, go to andrewbostom.org, and this way you could order some of his books before you get into his blog, right? You can order Iran's Final Solution.
Right.
You can order the history, Sharia and Freedom, the legacy of jihad, everything else. So make sure you check out Angie's stuff. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it, and we'll catch up to you in the very near future, okay?
Thanks, guys. Take care.
You too,
appreciate
Andy.
it. Bye, Andy.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks, there you have it. Andy Bostom is one of the world's foremost authorities on Islamic anti-Semitism. He just told you some of the horrific conditions in Iran, formerly Persia, dating back centuries and centuries and centuries of their anti-Semitism, the outright Jew hatred, and hatred of all others, non-Muslim. So if you think this deal yesterday, which is pretty much a consensus, is a garbage deal with no teeth that is going to lead Iran directly to a nuclear bomb, they are probably going to use it. Something we need to talk about next Wednesday.
Yes.
Next Wednesday, there is a big Stand With Israel rally going on. If you are in the Northeast, you got to go to Times Square, 42nd and 7th. You must go there to stand with Israel. If you're in the Fort Lauderdale area, if you're in Miami, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach area, Broward Boulevard and 3rd Avenue. It's the corner where everything always happens. 5:30 p.m. next Wednesday, July 22nd, 1 week from today.
Oh, by the way, this is becoming a really, really big rally. This is actually it's gathering so much. There's a lot of organization going behind it. So this is going to be a really good rally.
Yeah,
a lot of speakers.
Very
and stuff like
important to go there, people, to show your support. Call your congressman. Tell them no deal when they have to review this. This is Damon Rosen signing off for Enemies of the State in the United West. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow.